The Endurance Asia podcast.
And always tell a truthful story if they ever ask. Stop the complaining cause things ain't that bad.
Ryan, how's it going?
Great. Thanks for inviting me on.
Oh, mate, so good to have you join us on the Endurance Asia podcast here in Hong Kong now. And yeah, I think I was taking a trip to Hong Kong and I wanted to, there's a few people that I've been wanting to get on the podcast from here, and you were pretty much at the top of that list, to being the kind of founder of the North Face adventure racing team, and just having an amazing track record in a multitude of endurance sports. So yeah, I'm really pleased that you could come and join us before taking a flight on for your holidays.
Wonderful. In the world's number one trail running city, I must say.
Is that like, yeah? Well, I mean, in your eyes,
I think you can, for trail running. I mean, for outdoor adventure, you can definitely say in Asia, the leading city, and it has been for decades, as far as not just what's here, but just kind of leading the trends, and one of the first cities to introduce many of the various outdoor adventure sports. But trail running, especially, gosh, you look at the number of events, the number of people. It's off the charts. I mean, name one city on the planet where it would even come close to rivaling, also the amount of trails in the proximity,
Yeah.
I mean, literally anywhere in this city, you're a 5 or 10 minute taxi ride from a jungle trail.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, and then from late September to May, every weekend, races that are getting 1,000, 2,000, in some cases 5,000 participants. I mean, I come from like one of the, you could say a major outdoor town. I mean, it's not a city, it's a big town.
Which is?
Bend, Oregon.
Yep.
But I mean, it's a mecca for athletes, etc. I mean, the biggest trail running event all summer will be like, I don't know, 300 or 400 people. And it's like one race.
Yeah. I think it's
nuts.
You're right. I mean, we're looking around here and you can just see all of the hills around, but the accessibility of the trails here in Hong Kong is just what makes it so special, right?
Totally. And that's why, for me, coming from, I come from Central Oregon, where, grew up on a ranch with a view of 9 mountains and 3 rivers running through the whole region. And I mean, just basically outdoor paradise. And to rock up in a place like Hong Kong, I mean, and still be here, whatever it's been, 25 years later, as not always my base, but most of the time my base. And for sure, the fact of it's such an amazing outdoor city is the key reason why I've stayed. Yeah. I mean, other reasons as well, but it would be hard to call it home, without this amazing outdoors.
Yeah,
on your doorstep.
Let's take it back to 25 years ago. You first set foot on the on Hong Kong Island. Back in 90. Sorry, was it 92 or
92? Yeah, 92.
What brought you here originally?
I was actually going to university in California at the time, and had a chance just to quite a unique situation where my school had this direct link up with Hong Kong University. I mean, at that time, I think we were the only school that I knew of that had such a link. The number of foreigners there was so small. Yeah. I jumped on it. It was supposed to be a couple months, or like I think a semester, which is 3 months at the time. And I was like, gosh, I've been here for like 1 or 2 months. I'm like, I gotta figure out a way to make this last longer. It's just, and plus, a few months is like an extended holiday or something. I was like, I want to really like dig my teeth in and just explore a bit more. And so that year I figured out a way to make it work for a whole year. And I took off to Vietnam that Christmas, and just completely blew my mind. I mean, just really changed me in terms of just, like Vietnam, being an American, right? Vietnam was always it was like the subject nobody wanted to talk about, home. My dad was in the war. He spent a year, fighting in Vietnam, and my generation was basically educated by Hollywood. Nobody in my parents' generation wanted to talk about it. you didn't really, in history class or whatever else, it was a bit of a sore, American, it's a sore subject. We, it didn't work out very,
and it was
it wasn't a positive, war. We shouldn't have been there to begin with. And
Apocalypse Now would have been the main.
Or like Rambo. And so here I'm growing up in the generation that thinks that it's being told that it's still full of POWs and that, these people are so bad. And so just to go there and here in 92, which still was, that was when Clinton was president. We still had he lifted the embargo, I think in 94 or 95. So like technically Americans weren't even supposed to go there, still basically there's economic war still strangling the country.
Yeah.
And I did this solo adventure from Hanoi to Saigon over better part of a month, and just every mode of transport you can imagine, from the back of a motorbike to, buses with chickens and pigs and everything to hitchhiking, you name it, to get through trains. And just, the people I met, just the salt of the earth, and just so, I literally, I can remember spending Christmas that year in a village on the beach where they were actually happened to be Christians, which is a small minority at the time, maybe, I don't know, 5% or something. And so it was quite sensitive actually for me to be there, because they were monitored by the back then the Christians were seen as a potential threat or whatever to the communist government. So they had observers coming to their church to watch and stuff. But I figured out a way I found just bumped into this really nice guy on the beach. Not that I was looking for a Christian church or anything, but his village, still the roofs on some of on their church was still blown off from the war, had not been repaired 20 years later. Just things still hadn't been rebuilt. But here, him living through this, and this guy would have given me the shirt off his back. His father, who had probably seen those bombs being dropped, and just them experiencing that and being just so friendly to me. So here's this young American coming back to their village, and it was like, they would have given me the shirt off their back, and they fed me. There was this huge rainstorm. I ended up spending the night illegally there, and the authorities found out about it. There was kind of this big thing where they, came. It's a long story, but yeah, they were just unbelievable host, and just so the kind of point of the story though, I was, it was such an eye-opening experience in terms of just, you got to see things for yourself to see the reality. Don't just look what the media is showing. Don't just look what you read and hear. Go there, talk to people, see. And that, in a lot of ways, that kind of just led into this greater. It just totally fed my curiosity to travel and explore more. Of course, when possible, to spectacular outdoor areas, not just like cities and stuff, but in general, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and it also gave me that whole strength too, or that whole frame of mind of, there's nowhere on the planet that I'm afraid to go alone. Just go, you'll figure it out. I went back home and everybody's like, oh, they don't speak English. What'd you eat, or what'd you? It's like,
yeah, it's quite alien for a lot of other people,
especially Americans.
To do that.
Yeah, especially Americans.
But Vietnam back in '92, because I went there in 2002, and I actually found that it was quite intense in terms of they were everyone's trying to get money from
So you got there during the whole capitalist boom phase.
Yeah,
and
at the beginning of that.
Yeah, and all the international companies just lining up to rake whatever they can, and of course the people there want to increase their living standard as quick as possible, but it's so yeah, it's a balance, and you hate to see sometimes places. I've been back several times since, and I've walked away sometimes feeling a little bit depressed, but it depends where you go.
I've found actually in the last 10 years, there's just been a huge economic boom throughout Vietnam, and certainly actually, and it just people are obviously getting more wealth, and actually I think it's had a positive effect. I think that in between period of going through that transition it's been quite challenging. But the endurance sports world as well, there's like loads of races propping up, like up in the north around.
Yeah,
Is it Sabah?
Yeah.
Is it Sapa?
Sapa, yeah.
Sapa, yeah. There looks like some unbelievable mountain bike racing and stuff up there.
Yeah, and also there's an incredible hill station, Dalat.
In Dalat.
Out of it's kind of like from the South Saigon, like the sort of, it's at this 1,000-meter plateau, and it's a little bit cooler, and it's got some wicked trails and hidden waterfalls, and there's also some, there's a key, at least one or two, organizers doing ultras and ultra trail running races, and there's a mountain bike event you might have heard of there too. I forget the name, but it's been going for a few years. They've invited pros come in and compete, and so there's definitely some cool stuff. But Burma now is kind of my real big passion for just getting out there and exploring new places. It's really Asia's last frontier in so many ways, but it reminds me a lot of Vietnam in '92, and of course it's going to change and whatnot, but you hope capitalism can have not just overrun places like this. There can be some kind of balance, and so far Burma's, of course, with the recent Rohingya crisis and stuff like that, it's slowed things down, and so it's not. But I'm talking about nice people, and oh my gosh, I mean, people who've been under a military or dictatorship for 60 years, and just it's just amazing how friendly and cool, and just how safe, and how again, like how little, like so many people have, but they wouldn't think twice about just like lending or giving you anything. It really redefines the meaning of what rich is, and it's not just about money. It's what the food they eat, the colors of their dress, the culture, the customs. Like rich is so much more than just about money. And I've been there 8 times last year.
Did you really? Wow.
Yeah.
Just on personal trips or anything around?
A combination of different things. I've been doing a bit of charity work there, trying to help. I built a school and a few other things, and so little in terms of donations can just go so far there.
Yeah.
And the education side of things has been so, under that 60 years of military dictatorship, was so low on the priority list. I mean, there's like government schools now that literally I've gone into, and these are government funded schools. And like, I remember one in particular that we've been working with now for a few years and helping them with different things. And I was like, okay, I walk in, through a translator with a principal, and like, what's the, this is out in a village area, and what's the number one thing on your list, that you really need? I'm thinking, okay, because we've been there a few times, we built a water tank there, and we've done a few other bits of repairs to the school. We painted it, did a few other things. I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's furniture, or maybe it's, something else with the water, toilets, and she's like, pencils. Exams are in 2 weeks, and we don't have enough pencils. I'm like, what?
That's crazy.
I said, hold on a second. I'll be back tomorrow. Took my mountain bike and cruised off, and came back the next day on my bike with my bag full of pencils. It was like, here.
So simple,
like,
but then,
I was like, okay, let's talk. What's next? What's second on the list? But yeah, so it's Burma. But then also, besides that, it's just, I mean, in terms of getting off the grid and doing some real full-on explorations, Burma has. I mean, there's a lot of places you cannot go still, black zones. Big chunks of the area. And it's changing so quickly too. And you can't even, from day to day, you don't even necessarily know, is this place legal or not? And I've definitely kind of pushed the fringes a bit some places, but there, I mean, the Chin Hill tribe, that's over on the border of India. I mean, there's ladies with facial tattoos, and that in their 30s. I mean, even though they're not supposed to, because they banned it, the government did years ago. But just fascinating hill tribes. The Shan Plateau, what's over in the, on the other side, on the Chinese side. I mean, people don't realize the Shan Plateau is like the size of England. I mean, Burma's a good-sized country. It's a huge territory.
Yeah, I was hiking with my son up Bukit Timah in Singapore the other day, and we got chatting to this family who were they were from Burma, Myanmar, and we're just having a chat. And she was saying there's 150 different kind of ethnicities and tribes. It's such a hugely diverse country, isn't it?
Unbelievable. And the country is sandwiched in between India and China, the two most populous nations on earth, and the economic influence and pressures of naturally coming from China, India's a bit behind on that, but still they have their hand in things. And then, and then you have, Northeast India on the other side. You're close to, Tibet, the Andaman Sea, Thailand, on the whole Kanchanaburi border.
Yeah.
And just for the event, the scope for adventures there too. It's, I'm in the outdoor industry as a career, as, besides just the athlete team and racing, as well as, other areas. And we're also delivering some of our, it's one of our youth camp locations now. So I developed.
Do you take people to?
Yeah, we have 4 locations that we've developed, and super exciting because it's total pioneering days. There's really no professional, outdoor operators really doing things with sort of safety standards that are important for us. And so it's exciting times there to not only have some bring students there to do some cross culture exchange, some service work, but also have a big adventure at the same time. And then locally, we've done some stuff with a couple of schools out of Yangon, which I never expected going there, and that's turned out to actually be a lot bigger than I ever really dreamed. And so that's really interesting, because here you have some of these leading international schools where half of the students actually are locals. So these are sons and daughters of, whether it be politicians or military leaders, or like the affluent community that can afford local Burmese that can send their students to international school, and hopefully these students because they're going to be future leaders of the country. And even if one of them is, you can really, I feel like you really can make a difference, because we're trying to get these kids inspired about the outdoors, get them to realize protecting things is important. It's not just all about raping it for the resources, and also doing some service work, and appreciating the different ethnic groups. And so it's super exciting time. I can't get there enough.
I still haven't been, actually. I was I've been raising funds for the UNHCR for the last few years, and I've got some contacts that have been out there in Rakhine's the region where and I've been meaning to go out. I've been trying to go out and visit, but it's just been too difficult. It's just no go at the moment. But I would like to go as a tourist and go and explore and see the country.
And when if you go there, you'll probably end up in Yangon at some point. The commercial capital, and where most international flights go into and whatnot. If you go there, you must stop by Bike World. It's the coolest little funky guest house. Stay there. It's run by this Australian guy in his 70s who's like a retirement business, and he's married to a local, and he has every Sunday a ride out to this school that he spearheaded to build out in the countryside. And it's just literally like you only go like an hour or so out in a vehicle out of Yangon, and you feel like you're 1,000 kilometers away, and you do this great rolling hill bike ride.
Mountain biking.
Mountain biking, but easy stuff, just fun. Anybody can do it pretty much. And then on Friday night, when traffic dies down, in the city, he does the city ride. It hits, Shwedagon, all these iconic temples and stuff around this. And so the Friday night ride and the Sunday morning ride.
Bike World.
And he has the bikes, everything. So
that's very cool.
Check it out.
Great recommendation. You can just see your passion for adventure, even like 27 years later from that first trip to Hong Kong. That trip to Vietnam seems like it was a pretty seminal moment in your life in terms of intrepid Asia outdoors. So
for Asia, totally.
Where did it kind of go from there in terms of you were one of the pioneers for the adventure racing scene. The trail running scene had only really properly kicked off in the sort of, I suppose, 2007 or so. Even though Oxfam Trail Walker was around. So talk to us about what was the scene like when you first moved back to Hong Kong permanently and started building it.
It was, there wasn't, in Asia, there wasn't too much happening. There was the King of the Hills was going on. Keith Noyes was doing a great job of building that. And that's, still around. There was the Wilson Trail, and the Raleigh Mountain Marathon, which is a 2-day carrier tent and a few things. And then there's Trail Walker. That was kind of like the three. Maybe they're.
And they were all team races.
So Trail Walk, of course, team of 4. Yeah, Wilson Trail was a team of 2.
Yeah.
They had 3 different. They could do a 4-hour, 8-hour, or 12-hour. I mean, in terms of like winning times, like you had 3 distances. And the King of the Hills was as it is now, but it's a bit more wild. They've had to pull back some of the really fun stuff. Yeah. Some of the more wild trails. He's had to phase out of those courses, but still same concept, half and full. And then what I got involved with was trying to bring the sport of adventure racing out here, because this is back in late 90s. I'd been involved in, outdoor sports, extreme sports, action sports. This is all sort of my passion. After I was involved with building Hong Kong's first skateboard park, and
really?
Yeah, and a few other just random things. Also, event management was kind of my background a bit as well. Music events, and back in the day on the ranch where I grew up in Oregon, I converted our barn into a live music venue.
Right.
Yeah, and every year in the summer, I used to have this called the barn party or the barn bash, and we'd bring in bands that were touring the West Coast, have this blowout,
Very cool.
So little did I know, this is from when I was like 19 or something, and when I come back from college, and little did I know that event management would sort of end up being a career I'd been in and out of throughout my life. I guess that was the start of it. But so just kind of in that vein of things with organizing events out here and different projects, and then I got involved with, basically partnered with the founder of Action Asia magazine, which at the time was sort of really ahead of the game. I mean, they founded in '92, I think, and in terms of the growth of all these sports, they were kind of ahead of its time, so to speak. But they, the magazine founder and I, we partnered with one other guy, and we to basically with the ideas to launch the first series of, basically the first adventure race in Hong Kong, with a vision to develop it into a regional series. So really the Asia's first international series of adventure racing or adventure races. And at the time, and remember, this is like the Eco Challenge was super hot. He's on Discovery Channel. So this sport had just been brought to the masses finally. Yeah. And so, it was on fire. It was like the flavor of the whatever, the era. And trail running was just nowhere. Trail running, of course, there was very underground, very small in terms of just profile. Media weren't covering that. Never. I remember years trying to just, I don't think as a trail runner, now South China does such a good job, South China Morning Post, of covering the guys online and stuff. It's just amazing. It's come from just complete black hole to that, like where they could care less about, but even trail, except for Trail Walker, they get a bit. But anyways, we basically in '98, and I'll never forget, because it was it was the worst possible time to launch a new event.
It was during
the market just crashed.
It's the financial crash.
It was '98 crash. So here we're going around, looking for $100,000 US in sponsorship money, because we wanted to do it right. TV production, and really proper international event, and oh gosh, talk about just getting rejected every door you turn. The market, they just, who had extra money to throw around for a new event in a sport nobody'd heard of in Asia. And we just, I actually remember sitting thinking, God, who's spending money and watching the television one night, and just thinking, well, let's turn on the Chinese channel and we'll find out, who are the last ones holding out and still spending money. And there on the TV was Samsung AnyCall. They were just launched their new mobile phone, and so I said, okay, and they were an Olympic sponsor at the time, of course. Back then, Seoul, I forget what year, but this is '88, so they carried on their Olympic sponsorship. But anyways, long story short, we were lucky. We had a charity component too. We were raising money for underprivileged youth through the event, and they really liked that. And they gave us the money we needed, and we were off. And the first race was the Samsung Action Asia Challenge, and that really was the start, you could say, of my career in Asia in this outdoor industry space. And we very quickly were able to build it into a regional series. And the key thing there was we, in 2000, got National Geographic Channel on board. and that was just huge. I mean, to get the National Geographic not only as your media partner, but they were in bed with us on all levels. They were helping, we were pitching sponsors together. We actually even got now I look back and I think I can't believe this happened, but they gave us, they let us use their name. They put their name on an event that, super, and pretty high risk in the sense of, not that we didn't manage things well, but, they weren't organizing themselves, and here, a new event and sport nobody knows. And, we're racing through gorges and jumping off cliffs and, mountain biking down. It was pretty cutting edge. Yeah. And they were keen to attract, or they were keen to connect with a younger audience. And so it worked really well. And that created the National Geographic Action Asia Challenge, kind of a mouthful, series. And so we took it, Philippines, Malaysia, Taiwan, around the region.
Singapore as well?
Singapore later.
Did it 1 year?
Yeah. Singapore did at least, they did remember the zip line off the big
I was going to say
what's
that.
The fruit? What's the durian building?
Yes.
Right, yeah, totally. But I was out of it by a few years later. I decided, I know a long story, but I was a little bit burned out after 3 or 4 years. And, when we got this series running, and I really wanted to get into other areas of the outdoor industry, not just events. And that's when I partnered with Stuart Sharpless, who's this incredible individual his background's more facilitation and an instructor, and just an incredible technical rigor and whitewater specialist. He actually, I used to, because I was, when I was race director of the races, I would hire Stuart as my technical director to manage the safety side and all that. So it was 2002 we partnered and started what's APA Group today. Yeah.
Okay.
So sorry, it's kind of
a
ramble.
No, not at all. I've actually I've raced the Action Asia Challenge a couple of years when I was here. It's actually it's not been on the last couple of years now. The AFCD have kind of clamped down on it a little bit, and the AFCD is the Agriculture and Fishery.
Yeah. That's definitely part of it. It's also just a reality that, adventure racing, it was like I said, it had such a big buzz around it for those several years, globally, right? Yeah. And then Asia, of course, was a little bit behind Europe and the States. So here it was still continuing longer, with things kind of leveled off a bit in the States and elsewhere. But then, a few things happened. One is just, definitely more recently, last 10 years, the boom in ultra trail running has curbed, and this is really just from a organizer's point of view. If you're a race organizer, if you can get 1,000 people to do your race, and all you have to do is organize one discipline. Yeah, it's so much easier. And then you're getting sponsorship and going to them saying, hey, I'm going to have this many eyeballs or this many people, and it's a no, sponsors always want us, how many participants, et cetera. So it obviously makes it a lot easier to reel on sponsors. The permitting is much more equal. The risk management, the list goes on and on.
Logistics and everything.
So people like, Keith Noyes, he did some great races in China, elsewhere, under Seon Asia. And then Action Asia continued after I pulled out. They continued for a number of years, actually, but then today, actually, the last couple years, that was the one race that still had kind of lasted. Yeah. And the last couple of years, it hasn't been organized, and it's simply for those reasons. It's
the economics around
it, and you need the race organizer, the race director it almost has to be just a passion project. Yeah. Unless you have big TV behind it. Yeah. And TV has, gone on to other things, and it's... Yeah.
And do you know what? I think it could be coming back. So, adventure racing, I'm middle of the pack of it, is I just love the team aspect, the multi-sport aspect, the logistics, and just the expedition length of it. And obviously Action Asia Challenge was just a day race,
one day, yeah.
But yeah,
absolutely.
they brought back Eco Challenge this year. Bear Grylls is bringing it back.
Yeah.
What channel's behind it? There is I forget which channel's behind
it. It's a direct thing, isn't it? Direct TV thing. I don't think it's a major broadcaster but anyways, I think you're right. I think all these, I think all sports, not all, but many go through cycles. I mean, you look at like skateboarding in the 60s, and then it went through these cycles to where it is today, up and down in terms of popularity with youth. And I think, mountain biking's gone through big, huge booms. And I think especially when you look at the explosion of obstacle racing.
Yes,
because that's crazy, and those are the people. You do a few of these obstacle races. I mean, what's the next thing? It's like get a bike involved, get a boat, go longer, go bigger. I mean,
it's very interesting you say that, because we had a lady called Maggie Svetkovic on a month or so ago, and she's been like just crushing the scene in all of the countries around Asia.
In obstacle racing,
so doing Spartan, and she started off like we did. Like a couple of adventure races to begin with, and I'm like, come on, get into the expedition stuff, because she would be phenomenal at it. But it's just finding females because obviously we need to have a mixed team as well. So getting a female,
it's interesting
because it's been really challenging for
I know one of the top Australian. There's a few years ago, one of the top Australian female adventure racers switched over. And she just jumped straight into like the world championship of whether it was Spartan or one of these Tough Mudder, one of the big ones, and just obviously crushed it. I think she won. I mean, it was at least top 3, and was I'm pretty sure she was like one of the one or two of the years world champion. But it was 24 hour length. So they're like going around a circuit for 24 hours, and of course her background in endurance sports. I mean,
do you remember her name?
I'm blanking.
We'll find out afterwards.
Yeah,
and put it
she's
in the show notes,
she's an amazing individual. Really, really. She's come back from cancer. She's had HIV for a lot of her life. She's an inspiration, this lady. And here she was, like,
and she was an expedition adventure racer and converted to OCR.
Yeah, and stage racing. I competed against their team on multiple occasions, and I can remember riding behind her on the mountain bike and just going, "Oh my God, this woman! Her technical skills were off the charts." Yeah. Because we've been lucky enough, the biggest stage races, because the expedition thing was huge, right? In the mid 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, it stayed around. There still is the World Championship, of course, and it's still, especially in Europe and in the States, not in Asia. Expedition racing never has taken hold in Asia. Yeah. And that's a big part of that, is just the barrier to entry to that level of length, and just also needing the female. I mean, it's the number of females that are actually strong paddlers, cyclists, and runners. It's the list gets kind of short to go. Who want to go like 7 days
without sleeping properly, and going rough.
And it's not any wonder. But what has in Asia, what interestingly did really take off, and a big extent because of the support from the Chinese government, was stage racing. Yeah. So that's really your Action Asia type of format. Your 1 day balls out hard racing, maybe finish time is between 4 and 10 hours depending on the length. Doing that, but doing it multiple days in a row, and then you come back to a hotel, repack your equipment each night, and then get a few hours of sleep, and then start again. That format, which is really, that was been my focus more, my racing career, and in China blew up, and it's actually now still going, but it's didn't blow up in terms of like mass participation, but in terms of the biggest events in the world. Yeah. Because the prize money, they're putting up, $100 to $2,000 US dollars per event for the big ones, with prize pool going 10 deep, and so the pros.
And they would be multi-sport. or in
This-
or multi-day trail
Mo-
races, or
no,
multi-sport multi-day?
No, so well, in my mind, this is still adventure racing. Some like purists might say, "Oh, there was no." Some of them had a bit of navigation too, but usually nav would be less. It'd be a marked course usually.
Yeah.
In my mind, it's still an adventure race. But like Kiwis would call that like multi-sport.
Yeah.
Perhaps like the coast to coast type of.
Yeah.
But essentially, mountain biking, paddling, trail running. Where in one day you're going to do each discipline at least usually 2 times, 6 or more legs, and just balls out racing fast. I mean, you have all the world champions there, and super exciting because it's in our backyard being in Asia. So we would, a few times a year be up in China and also just discovering these places in China you normally would never necessarily have, go through. And here in a few days, 200 or 300 kilometers through, of course, at breakneck speed, so you'd want to come back at a slower pace and check it out. But if you see something really insane, which I did many times, I went back and, I want to go back to that spot and have more of a look around. And
because they had the Sabre Adventure Challenge, which was going for like 17 years or so.
So that was kind of a mini expedition race,
and that was
3 day.
3 day.
Yeah.
So we did. A friend and I did the last edition. It would have been 2017 was the last one they did, and then they've they haven't actually haven't done it for the last couple of years. I mean, they're still running TMBT
because they started doing Ultra Trail, and then it's like
and it's just easier to organise. And the last time we did it, there was only 12 teams, so it's 15 teams or something. So it's just the economics don't. And then they do TMBT or Borneo Ultra, where they get thousands of people, and it's just much easier logistically to organise. But still, I'd love it if they still continue to
and there needs to also be better better collaboration on a global level between, like for example, the Eco Challenge coming up, right? Here it is it's in September, I think. It's exciting.
Fiji,
It's it's the equivalent of like a world championship level expedition race. But here, Wulong has always been the equivalent of like a stage racing world championships. Is like a month later or a few weeks, I forget, before or after. I mean, how can you have that kind of date clash? It makes no sense because these are the same athletes at the top end. Not everybody would do both, but I mean, at the big races in China back in the day, it was Mike Closure, it was Team Nike would be there, it was all the top Kiwis are there. It's the same guys that are on the winning expedition racing teams.
Yeah.
So why so there could be better collaboration that would really, and if you're trying to be professional, or even if you're just trying to supplement whatever other income you have with racing, you need to have a chance to, every time there's a bigger race with a bit of prize money, you can't have it all, in the same month or the same.
They do a pretty good job on the ARWS, the Adventure Race World Series, but
that's
it's not all.
series.
It's just one series of races. It doesn't necessarily collaborate with all, and like Godzone's not part of that in New Zealand, and obviously all of these in China are. There was one in China in the Atoll Mount, which they did a feature race initially, but then last year's one got cancelled, unfortunately. But
and they gotta get more prize money on the expedition side to really help the elite side of things, and that's just really the race organizers. They gotta really put the screws down with tourism authorities, with governments, and get television deals to justify.
Well, I'm personally hoping that Eco Challenge this year sort of just reignites the fire for adventure racing, and then gets not just from a participants level, but also from from tourism boards, and just encourages people to want to welcome them in. Because here in Asia, we've got in Malaysia, they're having their first expedition race in October, which will be interesting. That's end of October. Imagine doing one in Hong Kong. Like, imagine kayaking between islands in Hong Kong and the trails.
Yeah,
I mean, look, if you're having trouble with AFCD with a day race, I can imagine it will be challenging. But it could just really showcase this amazing city.
You're absolutely right.
And I just think, especially in this day, social media is a great way to be able to promote these and for people to be able to follow. But if you can imagine like having drones following teams all around, and actually the level of footage that you could have on these races could just be amazing.
Phenomenal.
And I think the Eco Challenge this year will show the potential in
Yeah.
modern technology about how you can actually show these races. So
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
I'm actually fascinated. We haven't really talked about your racing. I mean, so you've talked a bit about your race director side, and then what kind of training were you doing through all those years? You were racing.
Well, it's funny 'cause that kind of I kind of went around, opposite of what a lot of people do, where they're racers and then they love it so much and then they end up becoming race organizers. Whereas I was just super passionate about exploration and outdoors and all of that, especially growing up in Oregon and being surrounded by just amazing wilderness, and skiing was a huge influence in my life. I was just from age 5 to 18 every weekend on the mountain, skiing and ski racing, and that also just the outdoor part of it, but also this the competition, the thrill of competition, and then I can kind of remember too. Like, do you remember, have you ever heard of a TV show called Survival of the Fittest? It was. I was thinking I have to Google it because I haven't. It's been so many years since. There's probably some old clips around, but that was. I can remember on TV as a little kid that coming on, and it was just like this epic, hear these guys like, running across, raging whitewater rivers and just doing these crazy challenges and just to, survive this course. And it was just so out there. And I can remember just being, wow, it's like super, super cool. What these guys are doing. And it was funny. And I can remember as a little kid on our ranch, we had our own we organized our own little mini, survival of the fittest, running through ditches. We had like a rope over the chicken coop, and I grew up on a ranch, right, with 42 acres or whatever, and we had to jump in the canal and swim in the canal, but yeah, I remember just being so pumped up after that. And that it's funny, it was then years later that I got exposed to being, with this whole opportunity to bring the sport to Asia, we talked about. And before the first race in '98, I was like, well, shit, I better actually do one of these races. I'm a race director. So when I was back in the States that summer, I did my first adventure race.
Before you RD'd, you hadn't actually raced?
I was
that is backward completely.
Yeah, totally. I was just what I had done is just some huge adventures. I spent a year in the Himalayas. So when I came back to Asia after Vietnam and all that, I went back to the States. I was on a flight back to Asia within, I think I mentioned to you earlier, within 7 days of graduating from university. Yeah. And I went straight. By then I had also lived in Colorado for a summer, and I went to university in California in the Silicon Valley area. So whenever I go home every summer, I find it was like my eyes were just opened as to, whoa, I was lucky where I grew up. It's not everywhere is, like Central Oregon. So I really began to appreciate the mountains even more, and just spending summers exploring. And then it's been a summer in Colorado that was like, 'cause I grew up in the Cascade Mountains, and Colorado was the Rockies, and I was like, what's next? Himalayas.
And did you climb any of the big ones out there?
I went straight to the Himalayas with the idea of just being solo adventure, not wanting to climb mountaineer. I knew I had, from years of skiing, I always had circulation problems I knew I'd get frostbite.
Right.
My hands, my feet always have been a problem. But I was more interested anyways in just not going on like a 2-month expedition with a big group or whatever. It was more just like solo, backpack, your whole life in a bag, and just go and, climbing mountain passes. And I started in northeast India and worked my way across Sikkim, just this Himalayan kingdom tucked between Tibet, Bhutan, and Burma. And I was poking my nose around a lot of areas too. When you're solo like that, you can really push the envelope in terms of restricted areas, and got into some. I can remember being on the border of India and Nepal, looking down at villages on both sides, and then I was supposed to go down and get like a permit and cross by bus, into Sikkim, but I was like, I'm at 12,000 feet on this ridge. I'm like, I'm gonna keep going, and ended up staying like in this yak shed with this young boy, and just this wild adventure. And of course, on that border is the third highest mountain in the world, Kanchenjunga. So ended up, trekking into base camp. At the time, you needed a big group to do that and everything. I just went for it like under the full moon, and I don't even think I had a headlight. Honestly, I was that out there. No first aid kit. No, I look back, it's just classic. And I do remember literally trekking out like I mean, going up, I was just getting around like park rangers and just kind of lying, saying my group was coming behind me. They were slow. That hiking out, I knew I'd get caught. And these guys all had made it clear that, you know, if you're by yourself, you're. And I remember I literally trekked out. I waited for the sun to set. I got to base camp, this, you know, epic adventure, slept, and then I waited for the next day for nightfall, and I knew it was a full moon. And I trekked out like 8 hours under this amazing full moon. Got to the town, the big checkpoint at like the crack of dawn right before, and I was sliding. You know, I just cruised around. Of course, the ranger, nobody woken up yet. It was like 5 or something, and got straight through. And I was like, yeah. And then I'm going. There's like a one road village town, thinking that I'd made it, and then all of a sudden I start waking up all the dogs, and pretty soon I look behind me. I'm with a full 20 kg pack, whatever, and I got littered, no exaggeration, like 20 dogs chasing me down the middle of this dirt road.
So much going
and all the chickens waking up, and the whole town and I'm just like full sprint with my bag, just going shit. Like here I was trying to like slide through the village, you know, like.
What kind of fines would you get then? I suppose what kind of fines would you get for not having permits and stuff going through Nepal? It's
funny. It would be more. I mean, I did end up getting caught one area, and the guy was so it was when I came off that ridge, and I hiked into this village, Denton, and just wicked. I mean, this is just to give you a visual, like you're on that ridge line, you're alpine terrain, 13,000 feet, view of Kanchenjunga, third highest mountain in the world, just, you know, wildflowers, like, you know, above tree line. Then you hike through like the most intense mossy rhododendron forest. And then you finish, and then you finish in like bamboo, and it's tropical. I mean, so in one day, like these 3 ecosystems are just like stacked on top of each other. Like normally you'd need much longer distance to get through that kind of variety. So this is Sikkim, right? Just mind blowing. But I ended up descending off this ridge into this town right at dusk, at nightfall. Finally got into this town. This is 2 weeks prior to what I was talking about earlier, when I got out of there, and it was the first town off this ridgeline, and I knew that, okay, you know, you're probably gonna, you know, you're gonna have at some point here, you're gonna have to, you know, somebody's gonna probably catch you. And so I was looking for anybody in this town where I could stay. It was a town that was off limits. There's no guest houses. This is far remote, you know, corner of India that tourists weren't allowed to go without permits. And so I was like, gosh, I didn't have a tent. I had a little baby sack, but I figured I'd try to see if any locals might take me in. And I found one guy spoke a bit of English, and he was really nice and friendly, and wow, cool. And next thing I know, I go to his house, and then I realize that he tells me, yeah, I'm a local policeman. I'm like, oh shit, local policeman. Yeah, but he was super cool, and he took me into his home. He gave me like the best bed and like room of the house, and we drank chang, you know, the local rice brew, and laughed and had a good meal. And it's like, oh my god, this guy's like, he doesn't care, like, so great. And then the next morning I woke up and I go to like the kitchen or whatever, and he's like, sorry, I gotta take you in, you know. I gotta tell my boss. So he took me into the so-called whatever, the head guy, and basically the guy, he was in uniform, and he was all official, and he looked scary, and gave my passport, and he was just bewildered. He's like, you know, where did this guy, and through translation, you know, where did you come from? Like, what? Like, how I could go over land on foot and, you know, like end up there. And basically he just said, he gave me my passport back, and he said, go to Pyongyangzi, where the district magistrate will tell you what your punishment is. So basically, like, tell me to go to the main town, you know, which is a 2-day bus ride away or whatever. I'm like, sure, you know.
Okay, I'm straight there.
Oh, yeah, I'm going right now. Grab of course, you know, I skipped town when I got.
Yeah. Wow, what a crazy story. We got sidetracked. It sort of fits quite nicely, like, to segue nicely.
So this was big adventure stuff. I mean, I ended up, so that whole year, I ended up all the way across. And to be honest, this also was part of me realizing I wanted a career in the outdoor adventure related space. You know, I knew that, and I also was keen on photography and writing a bit too, and had fantasies of like, oh, I can be a National Geographic photographer or something, or, you know, like, and not having no idea how you'd even get into this, and I'm just so passionate and curious about not just outdoor adventure, but also just areas that had, I was doing some stupid stuff too. I was young and just pushing the envelope with, areas that are, some war-torn areas. So I ended up in Kashmir.
Right.
And that was the whole other end of the Himalayas, right? And, beyond, right? So I ended up traversing through Nepal and ended up around on the Kashmir side. And that was super intense. They're going through a really intense pocket of a few years of kidnappings and, so much tension between the Indian Army and the different militant factions who wanted an independence. I went there and I happened to be there at a time when 5 foreigners were kidnapped, 5 or 6, and it was super high profile because it was a mix. It was a British, an American, a Norwegian, like 5 or 6 nationalities, all with wives and girlfriends. They all got surrounded in their tents in the middle of the night, and basically they separated the men from the women, and they took all the men and hiked them straight into the mountains. And crazy story, and they were super adamant on wanting to exchange militant hostages that the Indian Army had in captivity in exchange for these foreigners, right? And it was there were a lot of kidnappings going on over a few years, but this one got the most attention because all of a sudden you had so many nationalities. So all the embassies, all the consulates that were, and you had all the wives and girlfriends who were with them who now had left and obviously went straight to New Delhi and were like pleading with, you gotta help release our husbands and boyfriends. And so then this all happened when I was there. And so here I was, this young, overly curious and naive a little bit in terms of, I was out, just all the journalists out there at the time were hiding in one hotel, didn't want to go outside. I was out walking the streets every day, and everywhere you go, you're in somebody's gun scope and dressing kind of sort of at local and just wanting to get the real story. I was living with a local guy and on Dal Lake and had some, all kinds of crazy stuff happen, but and really hearing the stories of firsthand of what the reality was of this war. And the reality was, it was like so many conflicts, it's business. There's too many people that are vested in this conflict, and this is going back to 87 but the more recent wave of conflict there. Because imagine Kashmir went from the number 1 tourist destination of the whole of India, of the country, to like war zone overnight in 87, I think it was. And then there was before that waves of tension and problems, but there's also big gaps of prosperity, right? And that's where all the houseboats on Dal Lake and some really amazing stuff was discovered and built and, et cetera, for the tourism industry. So anyways, you can imagine these people's livelihoods, though, just crushed. And now today, how many years is that? Jesus, it's like 40 years now or 30 years or
30 years.
Geez, it was like, so anyways, the Norwegian got his head cut off with a note stuck in it and said, like, yeah, we're serious, give us our hostages. So the whole thing was, of course, international news. And so I really stupidly went up to, on the news, oh, nobody can go it was a mountain town that's quite famous, Pahagom, where the like a one-day hike from there where the kidnapping took place. And I wanted to go investigate, and so I went, and they said, oh, nobody can go there or whatever. But I said, well, let's see. And I jumped on local buses, and I literally got like it was the longest bus ride ever. We got stopped like 10 times at least. Every time taken out by the Indian Army, lined up, people whipped or, that didn't look right or that were, just the amount of that. So much tension with the Army and locals. But for some reason, nobody stopped me. I stood in line and kept going. I ended up getting all the way to that town, jumped off the bus, went and hid in the trees in the forest, and was like, okay, because it was full of Indian Army. And I went there because I wanted just to see what basically cover the war, kind of as a, I guess a so-called journalist or wannabe journalist. And I ended up meeting this local guy. He took me into his house, super nice guy. He was a trekking guide. And but it was there was this Indian Army all over. And of course, there was supposed to be this massive manhunt going on, but it wasn't happening. All the Indian Army were scared to go hiking up in the mountains.
Yeah.
With these guys who had done the kidnapping were like Afghan guerrillas who all they've done is live in the mountains and fight since the Afghan war.
A bit like the Americans
The
fighting the
mercenaries.
Viet Cong or something. It's like,
totally.
yeah, good luck.
I mean, here these like Indian Army guy from Kerala,
Yeah.
you know, growing up in banana plantations. Is he going to go run in the mountains and chase this Afghan guerrilla? I mean, no way.
Yeah.
So, anyway, long story short, there was a bomb blast that went off too when I was there. A bunch of people died, and I ended up covering it and had the only camera there, and so I got kind of caught up in the whole thing. But I was just discovered by the army there within a day, and they were like, "What is this foreigner doing here?" They were pissed, and the guy, you know, he was going to make me leave the next morning, but this bomb went off, and then it was complicated things, and anyway, so I got really sucked into the whole thing, and ended up. But I kind of this whole thing of wanting to potentially have a career and, you know, adventure photography and photojournalism or whatever. I captured some pretty crazy stuff, and then I went straight back to Srinagar, the capital, after, and was trying to develop slide film, and then came to find out, you know, nobody could develop slide film, of course, in this war-torn capital. You know, at that time it was only, you know, just because of the situation there, and so my film was worthless because that time, that's when I kind of learned about how it all worked as a photographer with the Associated Press, and that would buy your image, and I started talking to some of the journalists there who were hiding in the hotel, and it was kind of like, oh, okay, so this is how it works. You sell, you know, you have this amazing photo, but then they actually own it when you sell it, and you only get, like, at the time it was so little money to survive as a career or something. But it kind of opened my eyes, to that whole, maybe this isn't quite as glamorous as, you know, or can pay the bills. And so most
risky as well, right?
Yeah,
like you are literally dicing with.
But you're in your
mid-20s
like that, though. You're also kind of like, you know, you have this feeling of your invincibility that you know, it's not reality. You know?
Your risk profile is slightly different.
Yeah. I mean, now it's like, no way. And like, of course, I don't think my mom still knows what I was doing up there, but she would have had a heart attack. But anyway, but leading back to like all this kind of, you know, career in the outdoor industry, whatever, I ended up back in Hong Kong, and then I fell into the opportunity to be the race director of this event, and then going to then realizing, well, I better do a race, right?
Yeah.
So I went back and did the High Tech series, which at the time was the leading American. This is 6 months before we're going to organize Hong Kong's first event in '98. I went back and did my first adventure race with a couple of mates from high school, and it was the High Tech Adventure Racing Series, which at the time was the sort of the U.S. Most popular and successful one-day race series that was traveling around the country, and that was a great day, just awesome experience. And I was hooked as a racer too, but I knew I'd have my hands full organizing for, you know, the few years, and so it was only after I stopped organizing races that I sort of you know, I saw how much fun my friends were having racing in my, you know, the races I was organizing, and I was definitely keen to give it.
You must have
more
still
of a
been
go.
training throughout that period,
I mean,
right? I suppose you've still got to recce all these courses when you're
yeah.
setting the routes.
I
right?
was setting the course. So I would be timing the splits to see what the lead teams I potentially could do, and I knew from my splits I could race hard and you know, and be right up there because I was seeing what they were winning in, and so that was so I was for sure like you know.
Yeah, your story of going through the Himalaya though, that, I mean, you're sitting there wearing your North Face t-shirt and North Face cap, and obviously the slogan of North Face is never stop exploring, and so it seems like it was such a you know, it's in your formative years back there, but it's still a big part of what you do today. You talk about being out in Burma 8 times in the past year, but I'm interested in getting a little about the North Face team that you've pulled together and how that all came about, and some of the individuals within that team.
So when in 2002, after sort of my race director career with you know, Action Asia and stuff, I ended up as mentioned before, I partnered with Stuart Sharpless, and we started Asia Pacific Adventure and built APA Group, which is a group of a few companies all related to outdoor adventure. And we, in 2005, I guess it was 4 or 5, we started racing a bit, and we're just keen. We were also friends, and then we did expedition racing was still just on fire in Europe. That was when the Raid was still around.
Yeah.
So the Raid was what inspired the Eco Challenge, right? Yeah. And so the Raid was now in its version of where it had these 2-day races to qualify for a world championship event. Yeah. And the mother of all raids, well, maybe not mother of all, but certainly in my eyes that year, was there was going to be what was billed as like the hardest race ever or whatever, in the Alps, basically crossing through Switzerland, Italy, and essentially a lot of what UTMB would be like one leg of this race, like around Mount Blanc.
Yeah,
like that whole region and beyond was the world championship for the Raid that year. And then you had these 3 or 4 qualifiers around different parts of the world, and so we jumped in a couple of those. One in Australia, 2-day race, and I did enough to prove our merit to be like maybe I guess the only team from Asia. And it was a team of 4. Yeah. We had to pull a woman in off the internet from like an ex-army lady from the U.S.
Yeah,
because there's no women in Asia then. Well, maybe it was at least hard to find somebody, and so we, Stuart, me, and a Frenchman named Philippe. Philippe was one of the first champions of the Action Asia series. He was winning all the early races.
What's his surname?
Philippe Guillot,
okay.
Short French guy, bald head,
great
guy, good friend. He. So the 3 of us, recruited this woman off the internet, and we were, and we made it to Europe, and that blew our minds. I mean, it was 7 days, like I think 10 or maybe 12 or 14 hours sleep in those 7 days, and we finished it, which was just, I remember actually sitting there in the race briefing with Ian Adamson, who at the time was the current world champion, and just looking at the profile, it was, I'll never forget, it was like 20, essentially like close to 30,000 meters of elevation. Yeah, just brutal. I mean, so it was ridiculous. Yeah. And I must say, during the race, it got to a point where like, how many passes in the Alps do I need to climb to like prove that I'm tough or capable, or it's too much.
Yeah.
But I mean, 100,000 feet or something, and whatever is. Or over. It was just ridiculous. So we finished it, and barely, and had some epic moments. We're lucky. Had some first day, a teammate got sick and got through that, and had a hypothermic episode. We got through that, but I had this grand adventure, and it was like that was at the time we actually got a bit of sponsorship from Solomon. And it's funny looking at Solomon now. They're doing a lot out here, globally. But a lot out here in Asia is obviously now. And back then there was like one guy covering all of Asia for Solomon. It was ridiculous. And we're like trying to work with him, and he was really supportive. But I mean, how big was his budget, right? Yeah. And so we came back after that race, and we were like, gosh, what can we do to really help grow opportunities for athletes out here, because we know there's Asians out here, especially locals. We didn't want it to be just like an expat thing. It's like the priority is local Asians, opportunities we can give them, help them with sponsorship, help them. Being with my background in event management, I knew how to talk to sponsors. I knew about media, television. I know how it all works, how to do the pitch, how to and so we basically went to North Face at the time, where they made a lot more sense too. Their product line was more in line with what we needed to use, and great brand. I'd grown up with using. I was very familiar with their products as well, and they were starting to make trail shoes as well, and so we went to them with a proposal, and they were quite interested. This is went to them on a global office level, and they were keen to look at it. And at the time, the Asia global office was in Hong Kong, which was convenient, but they were a bit slow on kind of making a decision and whatever.
What year was this?
Maybe 2005, 6.
Okay, because it was around 2000 and 2008 or 9 that they started the ultra running series. So
Even later.
North Face 100, I think it was, or maybe 2010.
Later,
Okay.
later. Because we actually I pitched that idea with Keith like years earlier, or around, I don't know, maybe around 8 or 9, and then later they kind of finally came around, and Keith ran with it. We went and that's when also Stone was just starting to do some trail running, and such a nice young kid who's like so humble and just so passionate, and I could just, I wanted to give him, I could just see his potential. Already he's just killing it, in local races, and so he was one of our first members. It was basically me, Stone, Stewart. We had a Singaporean. Actually, she was quite unique. She was a little bit more of a roadie though, but so her technical skills were a bit limited, but great athlete. Esther Tan. She was the first female underwater explosive expert in the Singapore Navy.
Oh wow!
So tough chick.
And
she was real into like ultras. I mean, like triathlon and stuff, and doing that, road stuff. And then she was our first woman. And then who else do we have? We had later. That was kind of the initial core, and then we built from there with more and more Asians. But to finish the story with North Face, the next kind of big race on the calendar was in China. Keith Noyes is organizing one of his series. Actually, North Face was the lead sponsor, the title sponsor. So the North Face exploration race or whatever. But so we showed up, and I'm like, okay, like we should be wearing your logos for this race, and it was a team of 2, and they, we're interested. We need more time. Okay. So we went there, and Stuart and I just just blew through it, and with our big Solomon logos across our chest, and took out the race on the podium. Ruined all their photos at the prize giving ceremony.
so it was a North Face sponsored race. So this is when you were pitching for the North Face Adventure.
So here, big billboard, North Face behind us on the podium stage, and here we are, these giant Solomon logos.
How soon after that did they sign you guys up?
Like days later,
What was that race?
So it was I think it was the North Face Exploration Series or something. Okay. Keith was doing a few different races in Taiwan and China. Yeah. But at the time, it would have been the one of the only things in mainland China going on. Yeah. So it was high profile, a lot of media, and he did several around, and so that was. Yeah, it's pretty classic, right? And then
the team's evolved now, though, right? So you've got some.
Yeah, I mean, so it kind of started from there. The North Face really got behind it. They because we didn't just need, we weren't just talking product and stuff. We needed a significant amount of cash to really kick this off properly. We wanted to take Stone to the World Championships in Scotland that next year, and the Singaporean Esther Tan that I mentioned, and we wanted to do a bunch of other stuff too, just trail running and everything, and then we built the team from there. We got Wei Biao was one of the China's leading adventure racers. He got him on the team. It's funny, on that podium that year of that race of Keith Noyes, Stuart and I are in the middle. Stone is with his Chinese trail walker teammate. Yeah. I think they were second or third, I can't remember. And then the other side is Pierre's, who is a phenomenal mountain biker, he became an incredible adventure racer too. Australian who was based in Beijing or Shanghai at the time, and we all ended up on the team right together. So Pierre's was one of our early members as well. Right. So I raced in Wulong in China many years with both Stone and Pierre's, and but it's funny. Look at that old photo. I wish I should have brought it. Like,
that's amazing. And and so how did the team expand?
So we took it from there, and the idea was to get more more Asians involved, and just more those that we saw potential that might find it. I didn't realize they had the potential that they did. I mean, like Jay's a perfect example of that from Thailand. I mean, I met him on Christmas holiday, where I was there with my mountain bike, and my wife's like, I'm going to go do, wanted to do a yoga class or do some yoga. I was like, well, I'm going to go mountain bike. Let's meet in the afternoon. And I went to the main mountain biking guiding company.
Where in Thailand?
So Chiang Mai.
Chiang Mai, yeah.
And there I'm looking like, I got to find the most fit guide I can see. And I see Jay in the corner, like just fixing a chain on a bike. And and I'm like, he just shredded, just super ripped. I'm like, but he's like in cut off jeans and like, tank top. And I'm like, cool, let's go out. And so he takes me out, and I said, I'm just going to hire you. I don't want to go to the group, just you and me. Let's show me the best stuff in Chiang Mai. Like, I want to go cross country riding, And so it's kind of a downhill scene there. So we took a Jeep to the top of the Doisa Tip, the mountain. And then we set off from there because we rode up with a group, but we were going to do our own thing. Yeah. And then I'll never forget. So here I am behind Jay, following off this first downhill, and it's on road to get to trail. And the first thing he does is just throw this wheelie down, like here riding this, flying downhill, riding a wheelie. I'm right behind him, just going, oh my God, this guy has some skill. Let's see what he can do uphill, and then the first uphill, he's just like crushing it. I'm just like, God, have you ever raced before? He's like, no, not really. Imagine he's in cut off jeans. He's in, but he's obviously, it's super.
Spends his life up and down.
Oh, and he's got and he just loves the bike. It just, you could see it in his eyes. It wasn't, he's one of the first guides in Chiang Mai, and he still does it today part time. Yeah. But I just love the bike. I see the passion, and I'm like, dude, can you run? Like, after the whole day, he just kicks my ass, and I'm on this heavy like rental too, but it wouldn't have mattered. He would have kicked my ass anyways. And I'm like, man, I told him about our team a bit, and I said, and I was thinking not just because we also mountain bike racing, was especially back then before ultra trail blew up so much. We were doing a lot more mountain bike racing as well, and pure, not just a venture race, but mountain bike specific events. And so I thought, he's thinking obviously he'd be key for that. But I also was thinking, gosh, as a venture racer, this guy must be tough. And he's like part Karen Hill tribe. He's got that shredded, just that tribal. Like
what's his surname? Jay.
Oh gosh, don't make me.
We will put it in the show notes.
It's super long and complicated. Yeah. I'm embarrassed.
But he's just known as Jay, right?
Yes, Super Jay.
Yeah, Super Jay. Yeah.
Or Quadzilla. But he.
And can he run as well?
So I'm like, dude, can you run? He's like, well, actually my first sport was Muay Thai. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, here we go. This guy, used to run to train for Muay Thai kickboxing, and I'm thinking, oh, he must be tough as nails mentally. I mean, that was his first sport. Yeah. And like, he's got scars all over him and stuff. I'm like,
taking leg kicks all the way.
Totally.
He can take some pain.
I was just like, geez. So I was like, Jay, okay. So I said, tomorrow morning, let's meet. We're going to go for like a 10K run. And he hadn't been training, fair enough. But I also kind of had to like my pride is a bit hurt from getting my ass kicked on the bike, so I wound it up on the run, and he held on for most of it, and I could say, oh, this guy, he hasn't been doing any running lately, and he still got, and so it's like literally within that year, got his passport, his first plane ticket. He brought him to Singapore. We actually won the old Team of Two Enduro. It was a great race through the night. It was they stopped doing it, but it was this really cool. In the area that was the dump that now it was a landfill. Tampines, right? Or
okay,
a cool trail network that's not there anymore because they're just condos or something now. But there was a great event that was a relay Team of Two, and it's like 6 hour, I forget, endurance mountain bike event, and oh gosh, having him as a teammate was just like,
and the two of you,
we crushed it, and then we took him to China and on our Wulong team, and then so I mean, then the rest is history. Jay went on. I took him to the States twice. He was all mountain world championship mountain bikes in Downeyville, California. This is where you got to be strung uphill and crazy downhill, like proper downhill. And Jay, he did phenomenal. I mean, he had some bad luck with mechanicals on the downhill both years. But
it sounds like he's a mechanic as well.
But
I mean, if your bike screws up, but
he was top 10 in the cross country stage, top 10 against all these just incredible mountain bikers. And so, and then it was like, because ultra's blown up so much, it's like, Jay, if you really, to really, I mean, the reality is, if you want to kind of take this as far as you can as an athlete, you should really looking at mountain running more. And it was funny, I remember him supporting us in Trail Walker one year, and he hadn't really been doing any of this kind of longer ultra stuff. And oh my God, he was carrying like our bags, because Trail Walker, you can have support team carry stuff. And he's just like with us for 50K or the 100K or something, carrying bags. I'm like, this guy is, yeah,
He's got it.
this you got to think about changing your focus maybe. And so the last few years, Jay
Chiang Mai
has,
is a great place to live, to be able to train for
incredible.
running, trail running.
And he showed his first world tour event, Hong Kong 100, 7th place.
There you
I
go.
mean, boom. Just
Unbelievable. What a chance
Unbelievable.
meeting, right? Just
Incredible.
going into a bike shop and saying, I want to
Yeah,
ride with
incredible.
that dude.
Shows up to UTMF last year. This year he had some bad luck things, but 2 years ago, first 100-miler, shows up, top guy in Asia, beats all the Japanese, 5th place overall,
Crazy.
world tour. Like, that was really his total. I mean, Hong Kong 100 was his coming out party, but that was his like world stage, you know.
Yeah.
And so
amazing.
so that's Stingray.
And then Stingray's come on the scene last couple of years, right? He's killing it.
Stingray's even a more. I mean, they're another amazing story. The short version is, you know, he grew up in a small village in Panay Island, the Philippines, and he, you know, his mom died when he was 14. His dad was like he is in his words, a drunkard who basically left the boys to him and his brothers to kind of fend for themselves, and he found he was rejected by the army 3 times. So imagine this guy,
For
this
what?
young guy,
For-
for just not being good enough, whatever it was, and he's really small. So I mean, I've had people tell me that probably is because of size.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, they do different tests and stuff. Whatever reason, didn't you know? But in each of those attempts, the running section, he's like, oh, I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah.
And so he joined his first like local 5K. He won that. Joined a 10K, won that. Joined a marathon, was like, you know, did well. Won his first 50K, and then I came across him and was like, dude, like.
How did you come across him?
Some locals like crowdfunded him to come to his first race outside of Thailand. I raced. Out of the Philippines, and it was the North Face 50 in Thailand.
Okay.
And I was there with David, our Malaysian athlete, and
David Sampat.
yeah, and off. I mean, here at the race in the dark, I see this little guy, this little shadow off the front. I was in decent form. I mean, though my old age, I think I ran like 420 something 50K, and it's not super hilly, but you know, I don't know, it was enough. But this guy, I mean, he just crushed it. I think he was like 4 hours or something, and he went off the front like, and he just won a 50 like a week earlier in the Philippines, and I was like, oh my gosh, this
Sign that guy up.
He needs an opportunity. We hadn't signed anybody for a few years, and just hearing his story and because it's not, you know, and having feeling like he's an honest and because it's not just about, I mean, it's not just about signing strong athletes. It's definitely about, you know, those that obviously can, you know, that maybe need the opportunity a bit more.
But their story can inspire others.
Yeah, their story can inspire others. And then also, like, you know, integrity. And I mean, you know, some of that you find out later. I mean, I signed like the number one trail runner from China was on our team for a period. Yan Cao. He's won the North Face race here a few years ago. One of the first mainlanders. He was one of the first mainlanders to break out internationally, you could say. And but before he broke out, we brought him. You know, we brought him, and he didn't even know how to run on trails. With Stone, you know, trained him. He did Wilson. He won Wilson Trail with Stone. He was on my trail walker team with Stone, and he was on our team not even probably a year or less, and his true colors came out. He was just in it for short-term gain, care less about the team, just for himself. What could he get out of it? He actually pulled this super lame stunt of trying to basically blackmail us for money before they're like a couple days before Trail Walker, making up some story about how he needed this, you know, pay off his teacher or something to leave China, and where it's like, come on, man, you know. And it was ridiculous. And it wasn't just me. This is Chinese. We're talking to him. That it was just the opinions of my Chinese teammates and stuff as well.
Yeah.
And so literally he came. He ended up coming, and we did Trail Walker that year. But literally, it was like at the end of the race at the airport, I said, "Open your bag. Give me our kit. Give me your team uniforms." Sorry, man. This is not what it's about. It's like.
Even in the race, because trail walk is so much about the sort of solid.
I had
team.
Yeah. I mean, he held on. I mean, he held on and had a, you know, okay race. But it was just, that team energy wasn't there.
Yeah.
From his side, but it wasn't about. He's still. I mean, he's an incredibly strong runner, but it was just more about he's just not honest. And he was young still, and hopefully he did change. He's gone on to do some big stuff, and I don't know who he's sponsored by now, and but he was with North Face in China for a time, but and he'd done some other stuff too, was signing some things behind our back and with other sponsors. And I just said, dude, this is an opportunity, but this is more than about just making a little bit of short-term buck or whatever. And it's about integrity and being a part of a team. And I said, give me your jerseys. I wish you the best. I hope you learn from this, but you're not right for our,
I that really resonates with me. I think even in the business world, you always say, like, sometimes you've got to fire your most talented employee. Like, if they are not right for the team, if it's not about the team and they don't put the team first, if it's all about the individual, then it's just not going to work out. But you've expanded the team amazingly. There's Wong Ho Chung as well has had a phenomenal year with the Four Deserts, isn't he?
And we
such a great guy seems as well.
And we've done our best to help him along and stuff. But the reality is too, guys like Chung, they give credit to themselves. Those guys it's about seizing the opportunity. We've helped with some certain things, and with Jay as well. I mean, the commitment it takes to get to that level in any endurance sport. You have to have not just the passion, but you got to have some serious discipline. You got to have the just big drive. It's not like this is only cash incentives or something in this. These are niche sports. It's hard, right? Yeah. And you got to really have that passion and that drive and put in the time. And Chung is just unbelievable, driven, motivated person. I mean, this guy, off the charts. Like he'll run laps around the fire station out in,
Does he work
yeah, he's a fireman.
Both him and Stone are firemen.
Well, Stone's actually an ambulance man. And he's a motorcycle ambulance man now.
Yeah.
So which is a challenge for him because he's got to sit on a motorbike a lot of the day, and it's not a best way to recover from running. So he's like first guy in the scene when there's accidents and stuff. Chung is a proper fireman, but he's lucky. He's now posted at the airport. There hasn't been a fire there for like decades. So he gets some good downtime recovery. And
he could probably go and run up Lantau Peak quickly as well on his lunch break.
Well, no, he can't leave though when he's there. So, but like when I remember when he was training for the Four Deserts, he, like all his colleagues about playing volleyball during their sport time, and he's like running laps around the fire station. Like I forget how many he did one time, but it was just mental.
Yeah.
Like
and I suppose just to close out on the team, and I'd like to mention Salman, who's the Thai. It was part of the Thai army, but he was there. One of the guys that was trying to save the young boys stuck in the cave. How did he come to be in the team? And I know it's almost a year to the day that he passed away, right?
Yeah. He, Saman was one of these guys that was just such a special character, in not just on our team, but just in life, and just with his whole circle. The whole endurance community in Thailand was such a kind of a linchpin, and people just, whether it was road biking, triathlon, which was his first disciplines that he excelled at, and then he got into adventure racing. He joined our team because he, at the time, what you could say was the number one adventure racer, and I went head to head with him in one of the River Kwai races, and he came up behind me, I remember, during the race, and it was like, who is this guy? And he has a big smile on his face, and I'm heaving on the bike, and luckily they had a mechanical or something. We ended up, he didn't beat us that day, but he classic guy, just this big quirky laugh, So every start line, if he was in the start line, you knew Saman was there. He was, where Jay is very reserved, very very Thai in the sense of just quiet and or Saman's just like boisterous and outgoing and but yeah, so just such a, I'll never forget how many guys he'll do like a 50K ultra or something, then across the line he'll do 50 push-ups. You're like, what are you doing? So funny, and he'd often just race out of his skin. His heart was, I've said this before, but stronger than his legs, or he'd blow up in races, and just because he'd go so hard off the gun. And Like so funny. And in Hong Kong, he supported us a few times on Trail Walker. Came out here and classic Saman. One year he was so excited about his first time in Hong Kong, and he was just going to do like 1 or 2 sections of like the beginning of Trail Walker support, and he just was like typical Saman, so enthusiastic. He just kept going. Like, Saman, the vehicle's there for you to jump in and take a break. Kept going with us, and of course, eventually, he's not going to last. I mean, he's carrying stuff the whole way. He lives in Bangkok. He's not like training on stairs, and finally, like Needle Hill, we lose him, but of course, it's getting dark. Then he has no headlight. He doesn't speak English. He's in a foreign city. He's got no map. Classic Saman.
And Needle Hill, you are in the middle of nowhere.
And we're like, where's Saman? It's now pitch black dark. We're like, oh my shit. And of course, we're in the middle of the race. We can't it's like, but you just know he'll figure it out. I mean, he's a ex-Navy SEAL. The guy's tough as nails. Like here he was. He ended up, of course, following some other team and then getting some food, bumming some food off the checkpoints and makes it like, ends up in, I think a policeman or somebody gave him some money for a bus and he shows up at the finish, we're there like, Saman, you're alive.
It sounded like such an amazing guy, and obviously so selfless and
incredible. And he would have been the first guy, if you were to ask anybody who wants to go and help these kids in the cave, he would have been just, I guarantee you, the first guy hold up his hand and just run in there and wanting to help. He's that kind of amazing.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys think about him a lot when you're racing as well. I'm sure he's sort of...
He was, I mean, for sure. And then when we were in, last year at the Expedition World Championships in Reunion, it was, Jay carried around his photo the whole race. And
would he have been racing with you? I mean,
no, but Jay told me during that race that he had told him that it was always his dream to do one Expedition World Championship, which I didn't actually realize until Jay mentioned it in that race. So Jay had us. That was kind of his moment, carried his photo around and it was, and there was a Japanese film crew that kind of got into the story and we're talking to Jay a lot about, and it's nice. It's great to celebrate Saman, his life and what he did. I don't have any problem talking about it and stuff because he's, he's an amazing guy. He should be celebrated. Yeah. I mean, and what and he died the ultimate sacrifice, helping others. It's like, amazing.
And that's the thing, it's just got to be consistently remembered, right? I think it's the most important thing. And so what's up next with the North Face Adventure Racing team? What's in the diary for the guys?
So, the big thing this year is I'm going to take 4 of our members, me and a few other, we'll have hopefully a fairly significant support team, as well as a film crew, to the UTMB and CCC. Yeah. So we've, before in our team, we've had one, like Stone's gone several years by himself. Chung's gone once. We've never really done it as a team and kind of properly, poor Stone. Stone's done so well many years, and he was on his own out there and limited support. And I mean, amazing. He was top 20 several years. And, but it's great. It's kind of like the focus of the year to build up to this, you can say. And so we're taking, and it's just kind of a nice timing thing because you have David is the number 1 ranked in Malaysia right now, Stingray, the Philippines, Jay, Thailand, Chung, Hong Kong. So the 4 number 1s,
and they're all racing
in their respective countries. We're taking all 4 of them. Yeah. So the 4 of them and
just UTMB and Triple C.
So 3 of them will do the 100-miler, the UTMB.
Yeah.
And that's going to be Jay, Chung, and David. Yeah. And then Stingray would do the CCC. So Stingray's still young in his career. I think it's, and the CCC's become so big in its own right, so competitive. It'll be nice to have, racers
and
in both.
It's a slightly less competitive field as well, would you say? I suppose it's still up there,
I would say no, but in terms of how deep, maybe it's less deep competitive, but at the top end, I mean, you look at the last few years who's winning it in their times, I mean, it's off the charts. Maybe some of the other races are a bit, not quite as competitive.
Yeah. Are you expecting Stingray to be in the top 10?
We got some great support system. Andy from Mile 27s.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Does
our.
he coach the whole team?
He's more like a coach consultant. So as we need him for different athletes, we pull him in, and so with a few of us, Stone, especially myself, and Chung, Jay, everybody's a lot of experience now within the team to help each other, help ourselves. But for sure, whenever we need a second opinion, Andy's our guy to bounce stuff off. Stingray in particular, though, he's definitely doing more than anybody hands-on program and monitoring things, and so that's really helpful. And it'll be exciting. I want these guys just to. The thing is, our team, we've been lucky enough. It's been 15 years, whatever. Now it's we've had enough success, I think, where there's not a lot of pressure that we have. You know what I mean? Like it's not like even racing. It's like Stone this year. He needed some time off. He didn't race much at all last year. Yeah, no problem. Our sponsors are very supportive. The North Face has been just great over the years. Champion Systems, they are Champion System. They've global leader in custom apparel. They make our team uniform. They've also been there from the very beginning. Yeah. And then of course, other sponsors as well. Just so it's
exciting.
We're gonna do it properly. We're gonna have a house as a mountain chalet for 2 weeks.
Yeah. And you can fully support them during the race as well.
See at CPs. Yeah. But we still got a lot of details to work out with the best way to do that. And we'll see how many people we have in the end that are going to be there. But we're going to have families there, wives. We're going to have some Chung's bringing his kids.
Amazing.
It'll be cool. Yeah, I'm really excited. So it'll be much more than just a.
You need to document throughout that.
Yeah, it should be because this has been a big part of the thing of the team too. I think from the beginning is it's not just about race experience; it's the life experience for everybody, and what you can get out of that, and where you can take that in whatever career. Because trail running is for everybody is only one injury away from being your last race, and Stone and Chung obviously is also now, and it has had a hell of a long career and done, but it's and that's where we have to be with Stone and I in particular. I've made a lot of mistakes over the years and trying to share the younger guys, like not to burn out or too early or do too much, or just how you manage your injuries. how niggles can just blow up and become huge.
Yeah, ruin a whole season.
Yeah, so we work closely with the needle man, he's called here, Alan.
Alan Chu.
Yeah.
Chu. Yeah. Alan Chu. He's come up quite a bit on the podcast.
And it's not for every injury or whatever, but for certain things, wow, super, super helpful in accelerating the healing process, breaking up scar tissue, dealing with extremely tight areas. But many other things, besides that are obviously,
what other injury prevention stuff do you do for the team? Like any massages or any stretching regimes or what's...
For me, for me, I've been for as long as I can remember now. I have once a week a lady comes to the house and massage a couple hours, and that's for me personally. That's been critical for especially when I'm in full on training and stuff, just to accelerate recovery. Obviously there's niggles to help work out. And in some cases, it's amazing. Now I couldn't do this at my age, but when I was my first trail walker I did, I was the alternate. I got pulled in with 3 weeks notice. I didn't venture racing, but I was doing 2 hour. I was doing stage racing. I wasn't at all training for a long ultra, and I literally had 3 long runs to play with before trail walk. And here on my team was was Stone, Yan Cao, the mainland China guy I mentioned earlier, and the top runner at the time from Taiwan. It was later with Kawasaki from Japan. This was that first year, right? And that I did it. And but what saved me for sure was those 3 long runs I did. I did a 4 hour, a 6 hour, and a 4 hour, and trying to get some other runs done during the week. But come on, the window to get ready. But I went straight from the trail, just straight to the massage table, and just working everything out to allow you then have a chance to run that week. And but we ran like, I don't know, a 12 or 13 hour, I'll forget what we were third place with some problems. Our Taiwanese guy had some issue. I mean, you always somebody has
stomach issues
or something.
Leg injury.
Trail walker.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, look, let's just a few sort of closing questions for you then.
Yeah.
It's been amazing hearing your story and the story of the team. But I'm interested. What's the most inspirational book or even or who has been a biggest inspiration to you, like throughout your There's been many for sure. I think from a race director kind of side of things and all that, Mark Burnett was, of course, the founder of the Eco Challenge. I mean, he came through Hong Kong in '98. We had lunch together, and just seeing the balls he had on some of the things, the way he handled the Eco Challenge and things he had to overcome just to make that event happen is like really quite inspiring. Not inspired by with The Apprentice and Donald Trump. Did he do the?
Oh my gosh, Mark Burnett went on to Survivor.
Of course,
so Eco Challenge, a lot.
The first
adventure racing you could say was in some ways the founding of modern reality television.
So we can blame him for
You
Donald
can
Trump
blame
being
him
president.
I mean, of course, it's not only him, but of course, he made him more famous. And but with what
has he got a book or anything? Or
he must. And then racing wise, we were lucky enough to, in 2002, we brought out the world champions for expedition racing, Ian Adamson and John Howard. Mm-hmm. We brought them out to Hong Kong a couple times. Singapore, we brought them one time to run basically workshops.
Yeah. Are they Kiwis?
John's a Kiwi, and Ian is from Australia but lives in the States now. He immigrated. But just being around these guys, that they were the current world champions, and just their skill set, and it gives you a bit of confidence when you go out and ride a bike with them or do stuff with them, and you think you can keep up or whatever. You're okay, well, you
can rub shoulders with them.
Yeah, a little bit. And then Mike, guys I raced against in the China, when the Wulong, the stage adventure race world. I was battling against Richard Usher, Mike Closure. You guys are, legends in the sport, kind of a little bit younger generation from the Ians and Johns, and faster, and then being able to, to actually, at the end of my kind of stage racing career, battle head to head in some races with him and stuff. It's just amazing. And but there's one other guy worth mentioning who is now kind of, as I'm getting older, he's 89 now, Lou Hollander, and he happens to be a personal friend from way back. He's actually the father of a guy I grew up with. His son also, Lou, good friend of mine as well. But Lou, this guy, when he was 82, he was the oldest finisher in history of Kona, of the Ironman World Champs.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Unbelievable. There's great stuff out there on him.
Lou Hollander,
and he's just what he's kind of done, and he's 89. He's still doing triathlons, still out there just creating age brackets.
Wow.
And every summer I go out on a bike ride with him, and he'll be still getting down like an arrow, and just like, dude, like what, like crazy. And he's a scientist by his career, as far as his career, and his science brain applying to anti-aging, and just really amazing guy. Just
interesting. I love that, like endurance sport as a way to increase longevity. There's a definite there's something there for sure.
He's a legend on the Ironman scene. If you Google him, and he used to be like the guy that he's like the man.
Yeah.
But so he.
You've pulled together some of the best athletes around Asia. What as I suppose closing remarks, what would be your advice to your people looking to get into adventure racing, or I suppose adventure racing really, because it's a sport that I really want to try and push the I suppose awareness of again, and get people to think about and try it. But
this can cross over to ultra as well, ultra trail running as well. But I think I mean, well, first of all, with adventure racing, of course, is just don't be. First of all, just get out there and do it. Don't. Oh, let's say you're already strong in trail running, and I'm not a mountain biker, I'm not a paddler, but just go for it. Get out there. You'll learn. You'll pick it up. There's so many opportunities and to learn from others. And I think you'll find most people in the community are keen to share their knowledge and their skills. And but I think also just in terms, sometimes the expedition side, it sounds a bit scary. Like, whoa, 7 days, 5 days, and it just don't. We have these, perceptions of limits, and it's funny, like the 4 Trails running races, like 2 nights of running or through 2 nights, and I kind of laugh, not in disrespect, but like, some people are like, oh my God, what are you going to do? It's 2 nights. It's like, you look at expedition racing, it's like 7 days, and it's in other words, like we can just, there's the limits are so much further than we realize. I mean, it's just it's nuts, and so just don't put a limit in your mind on anything. And it's in sleep wise, the body can respond phenomenally well with short naps, and when you're in that pocket of that intensity of the moment, and even more so when you're with a team, because not everybody has their low moment at the same time, so you're helping each other. But yeah, it's unbelievable what 30-minute nap or 1 hour, how you can. I mean, you can bounce back, easily go 48 hours and just with even like a short nap and just still feel totally, solid. As it goes on, of course, you need to look at maybe getting some more 1 hour naps. But yeah, so yeah, it's phenomenal. I think also expecting problems, going to these big races, expect there's going to be problems. It's going to happen.
You're going to get lost.
Or not even necessarily lost, but equipment failure or the pain you're gonna, like the suffering, somebody in the team is, but so just expect it and like, okay, how are we gonna manage it? Because it happens to all the elite level, everybody has problems. Don't think that they're just getting through this thing smoothly. No way. But the best teams are the most skilled at managing their problems, and they don't panic.
And the biggest thing is just not to like the blaming culture. Like you manage everything as a team. No one, anything. If something goes wrong with someone, it's all of you. You've got collective accountability for everything.
I mean, we were out in Reunion Island at the World Champs last year. We were out at open sea, and Jay
was throwing up. Right?
I mean, was seasick on us, which is he'd never been seasick in his life. It was just the swell was so huge, it just triggered something in his body. And he threw up at least 20 times. Yeah. And if you're seasick and you're in a kayak, I mean, and here we are, open sun, run out of water, and just like, we hook our boats up together. Like, so now we're tied together, and we just, we lay him down, cover him out of the sun, and just sleep if you can, Jay, or just, I mean, he's so tough. He's able to gut it out, but you
have to do what you can in that situation.
And then the end of that paddle, 2 fins popped out of the water, and we were just like, and this is like one of the most shark infested areas of the world. Talk about panic. And we were like coming straight at us, and we're just like, oh my God, not now. Shark attack.
And always tell a truthful story if they ever ask. Stop the complaining, cause things ain't that bad.